So today we'll be seeing about the successive combination, that is a second type. So in the successive combination, it is the sequences of reflexes that are chaining together. Okay, so when a stimulus is given, so it will produce a response, and after that, response, that reflex will act as a next stimulus. So in that way, it is a chaining of a number of reflexes, and also these reflexes are seen to follow one another in a consecutive combination, and these occur without any confusion. So they are saying is that if one stimulus stops, coincidentally the other begins. And for example, if you are seeing in case of a frog, that is known as the dart reflex of the frog. So he is saying that if a frog sees a fly, then it acts as a stimulus. So whenever a fly has reached in front of the frog, it will catch the fly. So it will produce a stimulus, that is it will close the mouth, that can act as another stimulus. So whenever the frog closes the mouth, it will act as a next stimuli, and it will result in deglutition. So it acts as a continuous process, one after the another. And he says that most of the things that happens in our nature, it is because of the different types of environmental agents that acts on the animal, and it produces changes. That is, it occur by the adjustment of different types of reflexes. And also he says that when two stimulus are given together within the fraction of time, the stimuli tends to overlap one another, but there won't be any gap when this overlap takes place, and also it takes without any confusion. So now he have talked about the example of the scratch reflex. So there are two scenarios in which in first scenario, what he is saying that if the first stimulus is given on the receptive skin field, and the second stimulus is also given on the receptive point, which is not far from the first one. So what he says that the response that is produced will not differ its appearance from the first excited. So whenever we are giving a scratch reflex, what happens is that a response is produced. So whenever we are giving a second stimulus near to the receptive point of the first stimulus, even if the first stimulus is discontinued, the reflex of the second stimulus will continue, but there won't be any change in the character. Okay, that is the first scenario. In the second scenario, what he is saying that the first stimulus is given on the receptive skin field, and the second stimulus is given in the receptive field that is widely distant from the first stimulus, and also it is given in a high form than the first stimulus. So what he is saying that the reflex that is produced will become modified when the second stimulus comes in. That is, if the first stimulus is excited in the low form, when the second stimulus comes, it changes its character to the high form. Okay, that happens in the second stimulus. That is what he talks about, the two scenarios of the scratch reflex. So now what he is saying that a reflex occur in an immediate sequence, that is one after the another, and it maintains the reaction that is already in progress. So as you can see in the first scenario, when the second stimulus has come in, it maintains the response of the first scenario. And he is saying that if the second stimulus character differ from the first stimulus, what happens is that the character of the second stimulus will be impressed. So now he has given two examples about the simultaneous combination and successive combination. So in the first, you can see if we are giving a stimulus using the edge of the card. For example, if it is a 6-inch long card, that is pressed simultaneously its whole length against the skin. Okay, say for 5 seconds. So if you are giving it for 5 seconds, what happens is that it evokes a reflex of a few beats and then it dies out. Okay, it produces a response for the for a few seconds and then it dies out. But on the other hand, in case of successive combination, what happens is that if we are using the card and drawing, if we are using the card and drawing drawing a line using one corner of the card along the same line, then what happens is that it evokes a vigorous reflex and it continues and outlasts. Okay, so first when we are giving in a simultaneous way, the reflex produces, but it dies out immediately. And in the second condition, when we are giving a stimulus in a line, it produces a response, but it will be lasting for few seconds. So he says that a successive combination is more effective than a simultaneous combination. Okay, I hope everyone understood till now. Any doubts? Ma'am? Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Can you please repeat the scratch reflex once?
Okay, 1 second. Okay, the scratch reflex, what it tells is like there are two scenarios. Okay, in the first scenario, the first stimulus is given on the receptive skin field, and the second stimulus is also given in the receptive field that is not far from the first stimulus. Okay, so what happens is that when the response is produced, okay, when the second stimulus comes into action, the response will not differ from the first stimulus, and even if the first stimulation is discontinued, the reflex will persist, and it will be maintained by the second stimulus, and there won't be any change in the characteristics. But in the second scenario, when the first stimulus is given on the receptive skin field and the second stimulus is given a widely distant from the first stimulus and also in high form, what happens is that when the second stimulus comes into action, the first stimulus fades off and the reflex of the second stimulus comes into play. Okay, that happens in the scratch reflex. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Riyam, I think I may not know what's a scratch reflex. Can you just tell what's a scratch reflex?
Okay, so in scratch reflex, what happens is that whenever we are giving a stimulation, for example, under the sole of the foot, it will produce a flexion movement. Okay, that is the scratch reflex. Whenever we are
no, Riya, that Riyam, that's not the scratch reflex. The scratch reflex, basically you have any kind of stimulus in one, taking it out, right? Let's say we have a irritation in one, not an irritation. What do you call that? Say irritant stimulus is there in one particular part. We keep removing it by flexing and extending the arm repeatedly. That is the dogs, you see, that they'll be scratching. If a tick or lice is there in one part, in order to remove that, they keep scratching. That's called as a scratch reflex.
okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, because I think we, in the first part, in simple reflexes, I think we had seen about the scratch reflex a bit in detail. Okay, we'll connect it to this at a later point of time. Anyhow, that's fine. Yeah, I can continue.
So now he is telling that if the reflexes are closely similar, then he says that it is difficult to say at what moment the transition occurs. Okay, so if both the stimulus are similar, like if we are giving a low scratch reflex, it is difficult to say at what moment the transition under overlapping stimuli occur. Okay, and he's saying that if the reflexes are recognizably dissimilar, the moment of transition is obvious. So as in the figure, you can see that if the reflexes are dissimilar, for example, once we are giving a low scratch reflex and another high scratch reflex. Okay, so as you can see in the figure, the moment of transition is obvious. So the first waves, it represents the low scratch reflex, and the second waves, it represents the high scratch reflex. So the moment of transition is obvious. Okay, the first stimulation is discontinued for the reflex, then takes the form of the response of the second stimulus. Okay, and now we are giving different types of stimulus, that is scratch reflex. So that are the two scenarios if the reflexes are similar and if the reflexes are dissimilar. Okay, now we are going to the next case, that is the inhibition. So inhibition is a phenomenon in which an agent stops or diminishes an action that is going on. Okay, so inhibition is a condition in which the possibilities of free motion are mostly reduced. Okay, so transition from one reflex to another occurs through inhibition. He says that whenever a transition occurs from one reflex to another reflex, it occurs through the process of inhibition. He says that the stimulation through one nerve inhibit the action of the tissue that is acting under the another nerve. Okay, and but he also says that actually we doesn't know the intimate nature of the inhibitory changes. Okay, but he explains that the nerve impulses travels as a disturbances with wavelength configuration of the intensity. Okay, so so he says that the inhibition is due to the mutual suppression of two wavelength disturbances on the same point of the conductor. So as you can see in the figure, there will be wavelength configuration of the intensity. So there will be mutual separation of the two wavelength disturbances that are occurring on the same point of the conductor. That is how the inhibition occurs. So next is the interference. So interference mostly occurs in case of the antagonistic reflexes. So in case of the antagonistic reflexes, there will be inhibition at one set of points and the excitation at the another set. And the process of transition, therefore, in many cases will be half it will be inhibitory and the another half it will be excitatory. That is how it occurs. So the replacement, that is the process of transition from one reflex to another, may take place by inhibition succeeding the excitation or the excitation succeeding the inhibition. So it will be like the flexion following the extension or the extension following the flexion. That is how the interference takes place. So the process of this displacement of one reflex action by another is termed as the interference. Okay, that is known as the interference. So most of these responses will occur by the coordination of reflexes. Okay, so these coordination of reflexes occur in two sequences. Okay, that will be in alternating reflex, and next will be in the compensatory reflexes. So first of all, what is alternating reflexes? So alternating reflexes are the cyclic reversal of direction of the movement. So if you are considering the stepping reflex, okay, in the motor neurons of the knee, there will be excitation and inhibition that is occurring alternatively in the flexor neurons, and in the extensor neurons, there will be inhibition and excitation. So there will be alternative movements, that is the excitation and the inhibition in flexor neurons, and the inhibition and excitation in the extensor neurons. That is how the alternating reflex takes place. Now coming to the compensatory reflexes. So the compensatory reflexes occur when the reflex return to the state of reflex equilibrium. So what he is explaining is that whenever we produce a response, after the response, the animal or the limb will move into the exact position in which preceding this stimulus is given. That happens in the compensatory reflex. So it will be occurring by the disturbance of the inner current reflexes, and it can be also excited by the passive movements or by the active movements. Now as you can see in the figure, for example, if you are considering a spinal dog, the flexion reflex. Okay, so suppose consider this animal is suspended with the spine horizontally and the limb pendant. Okay, so the limbs are then in slight active extension position as if the animal is standing. So whenever we are giving a stimulus on the foot, okay, then flexion reflex will be induced. That is, the limb will be drawn up to that is, flexion will be produced at the hip, knee, and ankle. So after the response, the limb will returns into its previous posture. Okay, that is its normal posture. Okay, that is not that is the compensatory reflex. So he says that it is easy to maintain the posture of extension than the other posture. That is the compensatory reflex. Now coming to the factors that is determining the sequences. So the determination of which of the competing arm shall be there for the. Yes, sir.
Riya, yeah, can you just summarize the previous portion before going to this?
Yes, sir. So first we had seen about the successive combination, that is the sequences of reflexes, and we saw that
slide and then summarize. Yeah.
Okay. So first we had seen about the successive combination, and we saw that it is a sequence of reflexes that are chaining together. Okay, and it says that it occurs without any confusion, and the stimuli overlaps with one another in regards to the time. Okay, and we had seen about the example of the scratch reflex, that is the two scenarios, and then we had seen that the reflex occur in immediate sequence, and also it maintains the reaction that is already in progress, and whenever the second stimulus is given, it embraces the character of the second reflex. And we had seen about the case
Ria? Are anyone able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it's audible.
I think Ria has, she has been logged out, I think, right?
Yeah, sir, I think
Yes, sir.
she's been logged in.
Uh, that is, we had seen that the inhibition succeeding the excitation and the excitation succeeding the inhibition. Okay, we had, and then we had seen about that the coordination of the reflexes mainly takes place in two forms, that is the alternating reflexes and then the compensatory reflexes. So the alternating reflexes we had seen about the stepping reflexes. So we had seen that in case of stepping reflexes, firstly there will be excitation and inhibition of the flexor neurons, and then along with that there will be inhibition and excitation of the extensor neurons. That was seen about the alternating reflex. Then about the compensatory reflex, we had seen about the example of the spinal dog. That is what it says is that, so the reflex return to the state of reflex equilibrium. So that is, it come back to the previous posture. That was seen about the compensatory reflexes. Sir, till here, anyone has any doubt?
Sir, actually, I just didn't understand this inhibitory reflex. Is it telling that like after one stimulation, then it inhibits to so that it can start the next stimulation, right? So is it like in a like as you earlier told about the example of the frogs example? So when the frog gets like stimulation from the vision, it takes the insect, and then the next so the that reflex is inhibited to start the gag reflex. Or is it like for like scratch reflex, like for every scratch there, like for one there is inhibition so that to start the next scratch?
Ria, can you just answer to that, and then I'll my views onto it.
Okay, so the inhibition is in order to occur the transition, there should be inhibition. So whenever we are giving out two stimulus, the first stimulus there will be inhibition in order to for the second stimulus to come into play.
So is it like the both the stimulus, two different stimulus, or like because as it's in scratch, like if simultaneously one this is given, so like to happen the second one, is it that inhibits that one? That's what.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Ria, can you go to that slide on inhibition?
Sir?
Yeah, that's fine.
No. Yeah.
Now, I think it should be clear from this. When you tell a scratch reflex, it's considered as one reflex together. And when you take the instance of the frog, what happens is one stimulus creates a response, and that response acts as a stimulus for the second action, and that acts as a stimulus for the third action. So when a frog is seeing a fly, that becomes a stimulus. That stimulus creates a response, which is the dart reflex, which is the tongue moving and holding the fly, right? And the tongue reaching and touching the fly acts as a stimulus for it to pull it back in. And pulling it back in and the mouth closes, that becomes a stimulus for deglutition. That is the next phase of swallowing. So like that it goes. So in both these instances, we don't scratch reflex as well as that. We don't tell that there is an inhibition of the previous reflex for this to happen. Okay, so
Okay.
that is one aspect of it. Prestige,
Yeah, yeah,
clear?
yeah. Got it. Yeah, yeah.
Now the second part is when multiple reflexes are there, what will normally happen is if the stimulus are of similar nature, then no problem. Okay. For example, if there is a thorn, right, in the under the sole of the feet, you tend to take it up, and when you're taking it up, if another stimulus in the same place goes on, then still the reflex has to continue and it has to go ahead. So there is no problem in that. But in case if you want that the previous stimulus and the second stimulus which you are giving, that is, these are two different reflexes. When you give the first stimulus, it is a reflex. And when you're giving a second stimulus, it is a reflex, right? Sometimes what happens is both may not be compatible with each other. So the one has to be inhibited. Okay, just
Okay.
1 second. Sorry, right? So when you want to flex your leg and take it up, right? There should be the flexion of it, and there should be no inhibition, right?
Hmm.
But when two stimuluses are going to act one after the other, that is in successive nature, if their function is opposite, then you need inhibition of one of the reflexes, because both the reflexes acting at the same time would be would not be very helpful. So that is a time when inhibition starts coming. That is what they are telling. So what Sherrington is explaining in the further slides is basically is telling that how inhibition is happening. That's what he's trying to explain.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Ria, you can continue.
Okay. So now we'll be seeing about the factors that determine the sequences. Okay. So so what we are telling is that there are 4 factors which influences the which reflex should come into play. That is, which reflex should dominate. Okay, there are 4 reflexes that that are 4 factors, that are spinal indentation, intensity of the stimulus, fatigue, and functional species of the reflexes. So these are the 4 dominants. So first we'll be seeing about the spinal induction. So the spinal induction, when we are talking about the spinal induction, it includes two types, that is immediate induction and the successive induction. So when we're talking about the immediate induction, they tell that the immediate induction is mostly occur in the afferent arm, and it is established in order to protect the reflexes, and in case if the transition occurs, it favor the transition to an allied reflexes. And the immediate induction is obtained with a high intensity, and also it does not persist for a longer period of time. That is what the immediate induction. Now, when we are talking about the successive induction, it is the reverse of preceding. So, as we can see in this figure, it says shows that in case of crossed extension of the reflex. So, what he has done is that crossed extension reflex of the limb is elicited for continuously for 1 minute. So he has given it by using the adjusted electrical stimulus and the stimulus is adjusted for the definite duration or the intensity, and it is repeated each time. So he is maintained that post extension reflex. So as it is maintained, in between he has given a strong prolonged flexion reflex. Okay, so in between the post extension reflex, he has given the flexion reflex that is given on the limb that should produce the extension. Okay, then it is maintained for the 55 seconds. Okay, so what happens is that the next post extension reflex that is produced, what happens is that the next post extension reflex augments its amplitude and the duration. That is it increases its amplitude and the duration, and after that it and as you can see in the figure, in case of C, D or E, and after that it slowly subsides. So as you can see in the figure, in case of B you can see the amplitude and the duration is increased, and in case of C, D, E it is reduced. Okay, and in case of F, these variables it fades off. So that is happening in the successive induction. Okay. Now next factor is the fatigue. So fatigue, he is explaining is that whenever a reflex is continuously excited or it is repeated, it becomes weaker and weaker and it stops. And he says that it is due to the fatigue. So there are two conditions in which the reflex ceases. So he tells that the reflex ceases under inhibition and also due to the under fatigue. So he says that we can identify whether it is because of the inhibition or because of the fatigue. So he says that if it is because of the inhibition, the reflex fades off without obvious change in the frequency or the repetition of the beat or the duration. There won't be any obvious changes, but it suddenly fades off. But if the reflex ceases because of the fatigue, there will be changes in the rhythm frequency, and there will be slower rhythm. Then the beat decreases and it ceases in a continuous manner. So that's how we can differentiate whether the reflex is because of the inhibition or because of the fatigue. And also he says that he has explained about the example of flexion reflex. So he says that if the flexion reflex is undergoing fatigue, there will be decrease in the amplitude of its contraction. Then there will be tremors that will be produced, and then it will be irregular. So in a manner, it will be reduced if it undergo the fatigue. And he also says that the scratch reflex undergo fatigue more rapidly than the flexion reflex. That is what he has explained about the fatigue. And now he has talked about the intensity. So he says that the stimulus can only establish its reflex. That is, if the stimulus can only produce the reflex if there is enough intensity for the stimulus. And also a strong stimulus will inhibit a reflex that is in progress. So if a stimulus is going and the second stimulus is given in more intensity, it can inhibit the previous stimulus. So he tells that the intensity is a factor. So in the next in the next slide, you can see the example of the post extension reflex. So he explains that in case of the first figure, it is in the decelerated rigidity position. So he says that in case of the flexion reflex of the dog's leg, when the intensity is given in more, there will be extension of the opposite limb. So he says that when the stimulation is in the second figure, you can see when the stimulation is given at the left hind foot, it produces the flexion of the left foot, and also if the intensity is given more, there will be opposite limb extension. Okay, that is seen in the second figure. So in the third figure, he is telling that if both the feet are stimulated simultaneously, that is of equal intensity. Okay, then what happens is that there will be flexion at both the hip knee angle in both the limbs. There won't be any extension. Okay, so he says that the cross extension of the both the limbs are inhibited by the flexion reflex. Okay, so he says that if the intensity of the reflex is more, then it can inhibit the other reflex. That is what he explains. So next is the species of reflex. And here he says that the adequate stimuli is required for different types of sensation. Okay, so for example, in order mechanical stimuli is applied in order to produce a touch, or there should be a raising or cooling of the temperature in order to produce cold or warm temperature, and we need to stimulate nociceptors in order to produce the pain. So, so he says that. So he says that there are analytic receptors. Okay, so what is an analytic receptors is that the pain ending stimulus. Okay, pain ending that are the nociceptors can be equally excited by different types of stimuli. That is, even if you are stimulating mechanical or even if you are using mechanical or thermal conductive, thermal radiant or chemical or electrical, we are producing a stimulus on these receptors. If you are increasing the intensity, it can causes pain. Okay, so what he says is that if you are giving an increased stimulus to these receptors, it helps to create pain. So he says that the nociceptor, the nociceptors act as dominant from the other species of the stimulus. So that is why we use different nociceptors are used as a. That is why the pain is used as a different stimulus in case of different reflexes. So he says that the nociceptor dominate from the other type of stimuluses like the mechanical or thermal or other type of stimuluses. So these are these pain stimulus is used in different types of stimuluses. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ria. Any questions? Okay, right. I think it was again a very, very clear presentation and a very elaborate chapter, but it has been very succinctly presented by Riam. So, as I understand in this chapter, we had read about that reflexes are chained one after the other in order to produce movements. That's what, when we are seeing movements, it's basically a chain of reflexes. That's what Sherrington tends to explain. And we saw different examples of when successive stimulus are given in different ways, how do they interact and they produce different responses. And finally, there are 4 factors which can influence which of the successive stimulus will predominate and finally come to execute the response. That's what we have seen. So I think it's very clear, Ria. Thank you for that. So if others don't have any doubts, we will close the presentation for today. Okay, and I think we are nearing the end part of Sherrington. I think on the 1 or 2, which is basically global understanding about the Sherrington's concept. And all of you should try reading the whole book of Sherrington. In the sense, we have made it into presentation for easier reading. But this will be very, very important for us to understand when we are reading about other techniques. So we will be soon reading about roots and PNF, how it's related to Sherrington. So I want you to just brush up the concepts which you have seen. Okay. Thank you all for joining. I'll end the recording and the meeting now.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.